Yo, it's Tatami, and today I want to talk to you about a little something that I call the Sankofa Renaissance. So, the Sankofa Renaissance is just something I just made up. It's just something I made up. But I'm gonna explain this all. I'm gonna explain this all full circle, what I mean by that. So, there's one thing. Oh, I also want to say I'm wearing my Zora and Hi John and Juju and Ancestors shirt. I'll put the link for that. That's somebody's Etsy shop. I can't even remember their name, but I'll definitely put the link. And if I don't, just comment, because I see the comments, and it just takes forever for videos to load up, and by then I forget what I'm doing. So, anyways, a lot of people are looking for answers. A lot of people are looking for a blueprint, a path. They're looking for a way to get information on African traditional religions. They're looking for a set guideline. And beyond, oh, let me fix this a little. I'm a little bit of a mess, y'all. I only did the back mini twists, and I still have like the whole front to go, so I'm just like a mess up here. Anyway, so people want a blueprint. They want a path. They want someone to be like, there's the road. And a lot of that is because we've been trained that that's what religion is, right? Abrahamic religions are very rigid. They're very open to everybody. We want everybody. If we could convert every single last one of you, we would. That is the anthem of Abrahamic religions, Christian mostly, is that under that dogma. Though I will say I get the feeling from Islam and Judaism that they as well, in a lot of sects, would like to get as many recruits, would enjoy if everybody followed their religion, etc., etc. And so, because we have seen this, and because Abrahamic religions are what we are the most familiar with, we tend to kind of equate that to what a religion is. We tend to equate it to a religion is you decide you want to do something, and then they hand you all the paperwork, and they put you through the ring-a-ming-do, and you wear a certain outfit, and they say a certain words, and the certain community suddenly lets you in because you promised, and now you're one of us, and you just show up once a week or whenever you fucking feel like it, and bada bing, bada boom, bada baby back ribs. That's religion. It's awesome. You're in. And anytime you fuck up, it doesn't really matter how heinous or crazy it is. You're in. And so when people try and switch, when I say people, I do mean all types of people, because white people have indigenous religions too. They perfected their techniques on witches, herbalists, village, healers, etc. Shamans, I don't know what their word for it, druids. I mean, they did a number on themselves before they moved to the rest of us, and we're like, oh, wait a second, everybody does this. So, there are white people out there who do have something to reclaim. But and I'm pretty sure that their stuff was, burned. Their many things were lost, languages, texts, etc. So I'm sure there are sects of white people who this parallels. But for the sake of this conversation, because I am Afro-Latina, I'm going to focus on Afro-centric, topics. But I mean, again, this could parallel, because I'm half Salvadoran. I easily can say, if you are trying to look into Salvadoran indigenous culture, history, text, you are going to run into a ton of racism. You are going to run into a ton of erasure. More massacres than you will ever care to read or, bear witness to, but they are your people, so you will definitely do so. My point is that when you're turning to these cultures, your indigenous culture, or, and you know, a traditional, tribal, what have you, you're going to find that there are a lot of gaps. You're going to run into a lot of situations that are basically, the end of the story is the Catholic Church killed them. The Catholic Church burned it. The priests did away with this. The children were kidnapped. The people were massacred. This knowledge was lost. And it's going to kind of put a damper on things. You're going to go into forums and you're going to say things to people like, so what book do I buy? Where do I go? Hold on, my kid is not here. You're going to ask, you know, who do I talk to? Is there a church somewhere? Is there a service? Is there a, you know, some regularly scheduled programming where somebody has dedicated their time? This is, you know, somebody who's here to just, you know, speak and be heard and teach, and I can dedicate myself a little bit to spiritual growth. Unfortunately, there really isn't a response right now, right? We're at a point where there's some places, right? Obviously, there are little pockets around. What comes to mind to me is the Wose community in Oakland, but also I think they also have another location somewhere else, like Seattle or something. But you know, even with something like that, I'm not quite sure exactly what their spirituality is, what they teach there, if they do initiation, you know, that type of thing. That's the type of thing people are looking for, and they're looking for something specific. Whereas 10 years ago, we would be satisfied with, you know, whatever African religion happened to be nearby our home. Now a lot of us are being more specific about our tastes. We're looking for the religions from where our ancestors are from. We're looking for West African influence. We're looking for Congolese influence, because that's where a lot of us here in America have come from. We are looking for you know, we're looking for where in the diaspora we were, right? Because hoodoo is a very African American thing. It is a Black American thing that we made for ourselves starting in slavery times, and has continued to grow and be molded by us. And there are different, you know, that's not to undermine anyone else's. That's just to say, if you are doing even the exact same thing in another place, but you're not Black American, you have no connection to the Black American ancestors, then what you're doing is not conjure, what you're doing is not hoodoo. You know what I'm saying? It is a different element, because there were dozens of religions created throughout the diaspora, depending on where we landed, and each of them is very rich, very beautiful, and very unique, depending on who the colonizer was at the area, who the native people were around them, what the circumstances were around their slavery conditions, what the natural plants, flora, and fauna were around them, wherever they happened to be taken. And so these different little things, a lot of stuff remains the same, but then you see a lot of little tiny differences that do, you know, make up, and sometimes bigger differences that do make up, you know, the nuance and the difference between these religions, and why they would have even different names, right? Why we wouldn't call them all the same thing. So, you know, we're looking for that, and we're hearing a kind of a cricket silence, right? Even if you look at some of the most popular spiritual, you know, Black folks, we see a kind of an issue, right? We see either one, we have an overwhelming amount of charlatans, an overwhelming amount of charlatans. We've got the charlatans who are just trying to make money, right? We got the babas in the DMs being like, hey, do you need a reading? Do you need a reading? I bet you need a reading, and people are desperate. So, yes, here's this, here's that, here's hundreds of dollars, blah, blah, blah. And you're just being scammed by somebody in the DMs. Your baba should never meet you in the DMs. There's literally way better ways to, if they're real, like, people will be coming to I don't know, they'll build their reputation. It's they should not be coming to you in your DMs like that. Um, then we have the other level of charlatan, which is kind of the fast talker who says a lot of stuff and claims a lot of stuff, even if it's historically inaccurate. I notice a lot of anti-gay people, no teps, they'll have a lot to say about like, this is like white man stuff, this isn't from Africa. And actually, like, the opposite is true in a lot of cases. They don't even realize that they've been indoctrinated in certain cases. So we have a lot of charlatans who spread misinformation. They get lots of followers, typically because they're very charismatic people. We saw this in Christianity. So it's not really that surprising to see in African traditional religious settings. They often are in nature and beautiful settings that, really inspire the viewer. Obviously, that's why you'd be out there in this, gorgeous setting, this jaw-dropping setting. They often, say, they talk fast, they have a lot to say, it's really nice, it's fun. But they're still charlatans at the end of the day. They're still often like, raising funds for bogus stuff. They're not actually being legit, stealing content from others, smaller creators. Black women often are the creators who end up getting stolen from. We have a lot of Black men charlatans who regurgitate what Black women say and get tons of kudos for it. We have a lot of different types of charlatans. So, we see the charlatans. And then what we have is what I like to call the like legit, I don't know, I guess like a legit hermit, like a legit, like we have a lot of really legit people who have no real dedicated niche. And this is for a reason. This is typically not by choice. Typically, it's because there is no funding for what they are doing. So they have a lot of knowledge, but they don't, you'll see they don't consistently post. They're consistently late on material. They have to consistently give things up or projects up, and not, because there's never any funding. No one is ever willing to pay the correct price. There's a severe lack of ability to consistently be able to pump out this information, right? Because we are not the Catholic Church. So we don't have this infinite funding of stolen wealth to always rely on, no matter what's happening. And so we're out here looking for answers. This is my point. Let's bring this full circle. We're out here all looking for answers. There's no consistent stream of answers, or if there is a consistent stream of answers, there are very few and far between. And the ones that are often the elders, like I said, from 10 years ago, even though they're a wealth of information in a lot of ways, they're not quite what we're looking for now, right? They're not able to initiate you. They're not able to give you the information of a specific religion and just dedicate to that. They're not doing a weekly ceremony where everybody can listen in and hear them give you encouragement and a way to do something with the ancestors. There's none of this. We don't see it anywhere, right? And so we're looking for answers, and my point is that with this Sankofa Renaissance, we have to consider that we are the answer. So this brings me and my thought process to the Harlem Renaissance. And when we look into the Harlem Renaissance, right, they talk about that need. It was kind of a little while after slavery, and people, they had a need for the material. The average Black person had a need for this material. The average white person was admitting to their fascination and need for this material. And let's, be real, a good portion of the Harlem Renaissance was funded by, and therefore in a lot of ways dictated by the preferences of white people, white patrons of the arts, because they have that type of money, they have that type of cash. That's how they set this shit up. And so when we look at the Harlem Renaissance, what we see is a collection of artists and creative individuals who reached within and found answers and gave answers. They recognized, they reached within, and they were able to find the answers to questions like, how are Black folks dealing? What is it like to be Black in America? What are you guys doing when nobody is around? What is this vibrant culture that, many people don't even believe exists, or is such a fringe society concept? It's automatically labeled as taboo or, wrong. And so what we had with the Harlem Renaissance was us telling our own story, and us reaching in and telling and figuring out those answers, and meditating within ourselves and talking to elders, and putting things down in a new way that we hadn't done before. And I think that's kind of where we're at now with this resurgence of African traditional religion. Just like there were always, as long as they're in America, we have Black folks who had the means to do something creative. We were doing creative shit long before the Harlem Renaissance, right? Phyllis Wheatley, bless her heart, indoctrinated as she was, could write a poem. You know what I'm saying? We had people making face jugs. We had, in fact, they had some of our best artists, right? Because they would go there and look for the best artists. You know what I'm saying? So they got some of Africa's best because they were like, we're looking for somebody who is an iron worker, right? That's an ancient African traditional metalworking form, artwork form, is ironworking. Those cast iron fences that we see, that's something that we've known. It's part of our culture, that iron. And so we have this, unique culture of artists long before the Harlem Renaissance. But then once we get then there's this unique pocket of time where everybody's interested, and we've got people who can. We've got people who are being called. We've got people who are feeling, that pull of, oh, is something big is calling me right now. And it's your ancestors, by the way. Okay. But for real, it's your ancestors. They're calling you. They're saying, you know what I mean? They're saying it's time. We don't have to do that anymore. And here's my thing. I think it's definitely divine timing, because straight up through civil rights, we needed to be, still connected in the way that the church connected us. You know what I'm saying? Before there was Airbnb, we couldn't stay in hotels. You know what I mean? Before like all of that, before it's like, oh yeah, I can avoid certain issues. No, you couldn't avoid certain issues, because if you went to the hotel, there was an issue because you were Black. So what you had to do was, you had to connect with other churches and other people for your trips, so you'd have a place to stay. You'd have places to stay when you arrived to a different town, and it was the church that set up things like that. And so I'm gonna say that there was, valuable little things like that held the Black community together, that I totally believe the church was useful for. But I do believe that the Christian church, the Christian God, has served their purpose to as much as we could use them in this new land. And at this point, that very bloodthirsty God that appears, in my opinion, to run on genocide, it's time to reject that God. It's time to reject that lifestyle, bathing in the blood of whatever, eating the flesh of whatever, symbolically looking upon a gruesome, horrific death for what? It's very, very macabre, very there's a lot that goes on into that. I could go on. That's a whole nother video. My whole point with this is that we are here in a more of a Sankofa, and I use that word because I'm thinking this is more of us, Sankofa is when you turn back and get it. You recognize what was valuable in the past, and you're bringing it back here. It's your birthright to reach back and get that thing. It's not like you're reaching back and stealing something. This is your bloodline. This is your birthright. It is your birthright to practice hoodoo, to practice conjure as a Black American. It is your birthright to practice your ATR as a Black person in any other part of the diaspora or the motherland, because I do actually I don't know if you know this, but I run the Instagram page Spiritual Black Girls, and I get messages from people in Africa, women in Africa who are returning to African traditional religion and saying it is a struggle. They are having to combat stigmas from their own people about their own religion, a religion that they practiced up until only like 100, 200 years ago, 300 years ago. It wasn't even that long ago that people were still practicing in West Africa, but it was very, brutally wiped out and switched, and the stigma was laid upon it. But if you look into a lot of African history, you will see that there was a lot of good done, and that witchcraft, as they ended up labeling it, was used as a form of resistance. That's why they made the anti-witchcraft laws. That's why British, German, Belgish, what are they called? I don't even know. Belgish. Why did I say that? That's so funny. Anyways, that's why they were making those rules, was because it was effective. If people had just been out there, just chanting and doing the bop, nobody would have cared. They were actually being credited with making earthquakes and scaring the shit out of soldiers and hurting people with the elements and with what was labeled as witchcraft. And that is where those laws came from. And then because there were those laws and because those stigmas became more and more prevalent, now we are having this time where even in the motherland, Black women are having to try and reach forth and reclaim their ancestral knowledge, and trying to have to stay safe while doing it there as well. Safe from discrimination, safe from people trying to stop you from being in their neighborhood, which I guess is also discrimination. But I mean, it can be like really scary when you can't find a home. Or in my case, I have actually been evicted, and one of the reasons the person gave was tarot cards being like the devil, or literally the most Afrocentric tarot deck. My first tarot deck was the little red one, divination deck by Levita Rue. I bought it like the year before Dust to Onyx tarot came out, and that was like made by an African American for African Americans, and she literally had it was like Black folks all over it, basic Black, like crossroads, snake, guy with a cob pipe, like very basic African American symbology. And he was married to a Black woman too. My point is that it's scary, when you're being evicted because of your religion, and you're like, damn, and I have kids, and so this just got like a billion times more real. And it just shows that we are in a time where it is still a little contentious. But we're also in a time where we're going to be the ones who are putting forth this knowledge, who are writing these kids' books, who are making these paintings, who are making these songs, wherein, we're building something that a generation from now, 2 generations from now, folks are going to be studying, copying, that the people who are the next generation, our kids who are trying to keep up this momentum of building the African traditional religion, building up whichever one that they're a part of, and making that community tighter and stronger with every day. They'll be studying what we were doing, what we were saying, what we were thinking, making their own thoughts, building off of that, keeping it growing. And that's how we're going to be building that rich foundation, that and structure that everybody's seeking, right? Because it's scary when you're like feeling called to leave something, right? Like you're being called to switch religions, not even to switch if you were never really like, oh, my whole life I questioned Christianity, a lot of people say, right? And so you're like, so this feels right, that finally this feels like I'm doing something where I'm going in the right direction, where this sounds like something. But it's scary because even though Christianity felt so wrong to you, it had a lot of glitz and glam, didn't it? It had foundation, it had money, it had, you lost your Bible, there were a billion Bibles to get, another one. There, you didn't, know how to show up. There were a billion churches to show up to. You don't like this one, go to that one. You don't like that, go to that. You don't like Christian, rock. Well, there's gospel. There's, the Southern spirituals. I don't know. I don't remember what the white people called their version of their Southern version. I know that there is like the gospel music, and then like there's like the Southern something that white people have. But they're very unique. You know what I'm saying? They're each very unique types of music, and they're all praising the same God. So you have this rich plethora. And I was actually discussing this with somebody about, the Kanye and Kim situation, and how, Kanye is kind of like, oh, I wanted you to be like modest now. And, they're both trying to build a cult. We see it. We'll call it for what it is. They're trying to build up a little cult. And I'll be real, before I saw that, I thought that the two of them had actually discussed this. Even though I haven't been his fan since he married her, I have systematically ignored that man since he married her. And that was hard. I was his fan when I was like 15, which means I was his fan when he was a poet. Okay. So somehow in me, though, I still give this man too much credit, because this couple too much credit, because I really thought maybe they had discussed it and were like, you know what we need to do, babe? We need to switch up our image and just make our own mega church. That's what we need to do. I thought maybe they had done that. It is clear that they did not even discuss it that far, because in my mind, here's what I see. He is trying to make like a Southern Baptist church type thing, or whatever his version is. I'm not even sure quite, what his family was into. She, on the other hand, is more into the, Armenian Catholic Church aesthetic, right? And if someone's into the Catholic Church aesthetic, right, she's into the glam, she's into the glitz, she's into the wealth, the opulence, you know what I'm saying? And so it's so interesting that my point of bringing that up is that you as a Christian can be into any of those things. Your taste can be the big hats in the, the scandalous, this is some kind of scandals, you wearing a tight, bright colored dress. I think Kim would actually, probably thrive in that environment and do very well. And Kanye's absolutely correct that one is doable, and trying to copy any sort of Catholic aesthetic is just, you know what I mean? She thinks she's going to do like a scandalous Catholic aesthetic, and I'm like, girl, you are not that rich. Like, you don't understand the wealth that they have. Anyways, my point is they can both be Christian and into totally different things and be totally served the second they want to go to church. The second those two want to go to church, he could find a church that was right up his alley. She could find one right up her alley. And there is a level of comfort to that, right? There is a level of warmth to that. There is not warmth, it's security, right? Security isn't always warm. It's just familiar, I guess is the word I'm looking for. There's a familiarity to that, and they appear so much established, and they appear so much, more together. And so there is that fear, you're switching to something that appears so much more hectic because it's had so much more violence inflicted on it, so much more confusion inflicted on it, so much more in general, you know what I'm saying, going on. But what I want to say to that is that what we have to remember is we are more ancient than that whole thing. We're more ancient than the Catholic Church. We are more ancient than, you know, all the other ones. Any other, Islam, we're more ancient. You know what I'm saying? West Africa was there first. People were there first. They were putting little things in bags and using them spiritually first there. It just is what it is. We are the ancient ones. They can have ransacked Africa and South America. They can break as many statues, steal as many, you know, little what was I gonna say? Crystals and jewels, diamonds. They can steal crowns. They can burn codexes, right? That's what they were doing in South America, just burning books. Like, goddamn, like idiots. Like, what? Who does that? Who does that? But of course, you know, we're supposed to be all impressed, I guess, that, you know, people don't know how to fucking live a peaceful life and progress as human beings. But yeah, you know, like, you can burn all those things. You can take all those things and get rid of them and put them in your museums. That does not change who was here first. That does not change who actually has the ancient religion. That does not change who actually is the original. It just doesn't. It just doesn't. The Catholic Church can put gold and diamonds on anything they'd like. It does not change the fact that that is all stolen wealth and that it is not legitimate. It does not change the fact that we are ancient. We have a foundation way more ancient than anything that they can even dream of. So, you know, yes, there is, you know, a lot of beauty. There's a lot of ancient history. There's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of proprietors and advocates for Abrahamic religions of all types. You want to get into any of those, and it is pretty easy. But I also think that if you are being called to do the ATR of whatever, you know, your descent is, you know, be you mixed race, be you from a different part of, you know, the diaspora, be you, you know, somebody who knows absolutely everything about, you know, your past, or somebody who really kind of doesn't, and you're just kind of going off phenotype. You know, you have an opportunity, should I say. It's not that it's your duty, but you have a very unique and beautiful opportunity and calling of your ancestors to help rebuild this, you know, the structure upon this foundation that's already there, that people are just walking on. They don't even realize what they're walking on. We have the opportunity to be building something for the people in the future so that they do have something, so that when they want to talk to their child, there is a little prayer book for the ancestors in the store to go to, or, you know, there is a comic book that references their, you know, history and their religion, and doesn't demonize it. There's like books about that there's you know, that there's just ways to do this and honor this that are special, and can pass it down to other people, can pass it down to the next generation. I think that we have this opportunity right now, and we're kind of in the midst of it. And I do think sometimes it's hard to see when you're in the midst of something that's like big like this, that will be affecting people for many years to come. And that does need to be taken seriously, because other people will be seeing it, and other people will be trying to learn off of it and build off of it. So, you know, putting in that effort in that time is so important. But anyways, I don't want to go on like forever and ever. But I did want to say that, we are the answers. We do have the answers within us. The answers are within our bloodline. They're within our psyche. So is it scary? Yes. Is it going to take effort? Yes. Are we going to be reaching out to people who are dead ends? Yes. And are also, are we going to be trying to find those answers ourselves, trying to bring that out of ourselves? Because in the end of the day, the truth is that we all have different connections, right? We all have different interests and we all have different connections. So we can all, through our collective research, our collective interviews with elders and family, our collective attempts to bring this information together, both physically through talking to people, researching, reading old books, interpreting meaning, and also to actually, pulling it from within ourselves, meditating, putting in that thought, putting in that effort, spreading our thought, normalizing it, even if it's not, you out here preaching to people, just, normalizing it through a post on your page, normalizing it through the words that you say, through the life that you live. This is all, part of the building blocks of this. So it's all very important. Even the person who's not standing on a soapbox, but is instead, just living their life, you know what I mean? Just putting the railroad spikes in the four corners outside their home, hanging up, a chicken foot, or making a cinnamon broom, and you come in their house and you see it, or you go by their house and you see it. That is also part of the normalization process, also part of the beauty, also part of the building blocks that, like, I'm talking about, wherein we're making something now, something big. We're a part of something big right now that, 50 years from now, we're going to have people who are very excited to, read our stuff and continue to grow in the community. This is how we continue to make it grow and build momentum and get bigger until we are something that people will be able to easily, wake up and be like, I feel called to go to the ancestors. I feel called to hear something about this, and be able to go to a local temple or, meeting place, or, outside somewhere where everyone's gathering, and come together and really connect, and do so easily, and be able to become a part of a community in a much more simple, welcoming way for the descendants, who, it's their birthright to practice. All right, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and may your ancestors and spirit guides be with you at every crossroads.